Computer. Right
Ah,
then, what is happening, gang? I hope this finds everybody well. Welcome back to the Built for Pressure podcast. And today I'm joined by one of my closest friends and hopefully a bit of inspiration for you afterwards, Mr. Dylan Goddard. How are you, mate?
I'm very well, and yeah, I'm surprised I got the call up. I feel blessed, to say the
Absolutely.
least.
Hey, if everybody's been following along between us two, mate, I was there watching we did some stuff over COVID where I shaved my head. I had an Amish beard and I remember doing kettlebell workouts of you screaming at me, telling me to stop doing roly polies in the living room, mate. So it's a bit of a different ball game since COVID, since we've endured that level of the podcast. But what I do for everybody who doesn't know who you are, I always ask the same question in relation to who you are, what you do, and why you do it, and very open to how you want to interpret that.
Sure, man. Yeah, so I've been this year. I've been personal training or involved in the fitness industry for 20 years already.
Whoa.
Probably about I try to calculate it. It's probably about 30,000 hours of coaching. That's a mixture of personal training and group classes and everything over and above that. So yeah, I think personally, never trying to recreate the wheel. I think that's a big one for me. Just I think the golden rule with the kind of what I'm doing is just do the real simple things really, really well. I think you see so many people getting in the industry at the moment trying to do all this crazy stuff and recreate things that just haven't earned the passage, to actually say what they do and do what they do. But so yeah, I've been involved for a good couple of years already, and just super passionate, honestly, about helping people. I recently just read some information with regards to those involved in health and fitness or actually have more clout and more kind of quality work than most doctors, just because you're seeing people on a regular basis. You have so much more kind of I wouldn't say authority, but you're able to have so much more impact on
And
really
influence,
helping
right?
people on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, I think it's a passion, for myself to stay healthy, but over and above to basically not to sound too cheesy, to just to lead, inspire and motivate people around me, and hopefully, come out of this thing a better person, and having helped many people to live their best life, should we say? So that's pretty much my story, man.
Mega. I think that is a very, very glazed. If you because I always talk about when I talk with people in relation to different spheres in their life. I've gone
Mm.
into some dark places of you, mate. I've been in some dark places of you wearing Christmas tights, bruv. You know what I mean? But I think that again, from a professional standpoint, again, I can relate more from a time will tell you is your biggest asset in relation to coaching from an experience standpoint. And like you said, from an integration of preventative care for people. Curious because again, I think people would dig a little bit deeper for you as an athlete first, purely on the basis, just so we
Sure.
get. Some people will obviously will know some of your past endeavors, but I think those that have followed me have maybe seen our cheesy grins on Instagram for a bit. But let's if we jump a little bit further back, when even before you owned the gym in Tanjore Pagar, give the
Mm.
listeners a little bit of an overview in relation to what performance was for you. Um,
Yeah.
as an athlete and what you've accomplished. And again, mate, it's always one of those things that people like me and you are like, oh, yeah, I just did that. It is what it is. But most people, like you said, but from an inspiration standpoint, I think just give them a bit of an overview about your CrossFit days and some of the biggest and the stuff beforehand when you're back in the bush on a bike.
Yeah.
That will give them some context because everyone's looking at you like, what? You're in a bush with a bike? Like,
Yeah, so I mean, I actually I had a thought about this through the week. The first time I stepped in the gym, I was 12 years old with my brother. So I'll be 40 this year. I've been training for 28 years. Um, so I think the first question is like, I think I've had a decent physique over the couple of years, and people ask me like, how long does it take, right? So I say to them, 20 plus years, and they just can't believe it. But it's more the consistency. So I kind of got into the gym, did fell into the gym with my brother. He was 2 or 3 years older than me, so he was training for a bit of rugby, and I joined him in the gym one day. And I've been training pretty hard like since I was 12, like no joke. Yeah, yeah, so started obviously I went to all boys rugby school, and that kind of sparked my fancy to get to build my physique and obviously build up for rugby. I played the flank and wing through my younger years, and then probably ended rugby career at like 18. Suffered quite a bad knee injury, and I just kind of that was the end of matriculated and left school, and that kind of was the end of it. I just think the ROI, unlike yourself, wasn't really worth coming back after a heavy knee injury. Some people just carry on, man.
Hey, just
But
be blind, mate. Pretend that it didn't happen and just go face first, bro.
yeah, and then I kind of had to decide what I wanted to do, and always had a massive passion for adventure. Being in the bush, coming from South Africa, it would be absolute sacrilege, not to make the most of the opportunities. Also started hunting from a very early age. Sorry to all the greenies out there, but yeah,
No peepers
like this
allowed,
is just
mate.
it's a big part of the South African culture. So went into, I was studied professional hunting. That's basically kind of what I do today still, but just taking peak clients out hunting instead of training them.
Yeah, yeah.
So I did that and then the course I did was quite heavy based in business on how to sustainably run game farms, breeding animals, and the like. And then yeah, so got exposed to quite a lot of international clients from quite a young age already. Most of our clients were from America. So yeah, that was very interesting, and just kind of so had that international feel from quite early on in my career. Yeah, and eventually, kind of after some long hard days in the bush, came back to the city where my parents lived, and I also just had a passion for the gym. Starting really young, I thought let me try and see what this whole personal training thing was. I trained at a Virgin Active, and I always wondered who are these people walking around in these black shirts with the coach on the back of their shirt shouting at people. Like, I like this kind of vibe. This is quite interesting. So very authoritarian, but I think over and above that, the ability to kind of help people and assist people, especially, you see this stuff in these global gyms, man. Some of the stuff is just out of this world. So, was it just a good
Hey,
opportunity
especially in
to,
Singapore, bruv. It is
yeah,
different level
it's
over there, isn't
it's
it?
it's something else, man. And so did my personal trainer certification, and then yeah, started working pretty much straight away. Was also doing quite a bit of bodybuilding then, and competed in bodybuilding for about 3 or 4 years as junior, and I think kind of got out at the right time. So yeah, so started personal training at a boutique personal training studio, and that kind of followed on. Eventually joined the Virgin Active back in Port Elizabeth. Worked there for a good couple of years, and through that time, I dabbled in a bit of like downhill mountain biking. I did a lot of cross country mountain biking. Really had a real passion for cycling, to be honest. Still do, and of endurance sports, should we say? So yeah, eventually kind of ended up in Cape Town, where CrossFit had just kind of like come to the scene, and there were some guys in the gym talking about this whole thing CrossFit and like mixing, Snington and like running as fast as you can type thing for like 5 rounds, some crazy. And I think people just looked at them like, "What are you doing?" Right? As
Yeah.
you can just imagine. So yeah, so I worked in Cape Town for a good couple of years. Kind of kept up the mountain biking because that is like the mountain biking capital, probably close to the world. One of the hotspots for mountain biking, at least. And but still pushed tin. Still got involved in the gym and then kept up my training regime, and then got opportunity to come out to Singapore. And I think that was just kind of like a phenomenal kind of moment in my life. I was 26 years old and headed out to a gym in Singapore called Pure Fitness. And yeah, then really kind of took up CrossFit. I think the bug had bitten, and went on to kind of competing for about 8 years, winning what we deem as, Singapore's fittest man a good couple of times, which was good fun. And yeah, just fell in love with probably the pain, I imagine. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's nothing other way you can say it. And yeah, and then I think I've always been, quite challenged, or fell in line with something that's going to challenge my body and my mind. We've done some crazy stuff together,
Yeah, yeah.
and I feel like um, I had a little thought a couple of weeks ago. I was riding my bike, and I was like, does when you're doing these things, because we often like justify these things, right, as there's these crazy people out there, like that it makes you build your inherent ability to handle more through life, and builds your character and all these things, and like, but the thing I come to realize is it never gets easy. Like, it never gets easier. It's
No.
always like quite shit, to be honest. Excuse my French.
Yeah.
Um,
Whilst you're doing it, yeah.
yeah, but I think if you really kind of get down to the nitty gritty of like why people do all these ultra marathons, and like you like yourself, it's like it happened. The rewards are more like subconsciously through your life.
Mm.
It's not to say like I did a marathon, I could do this, etc. You're doing these things to know that you can handle enough, and you increasing your capacity to potentially handle more stress in your life. But these doing these events in itself is a massive stress on your life as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Good, bad, or ugly, whatever you want to call it, right? We'll see at the end, when the ticket comes to the end, if it all kind of paid off. But yeah, so went quite deep into the CrossFit. Eventually, I was working at that stage, moved to a gym called UFit and partnered with them and opened up a CrossFit facility in Bocatima. And then eventually ran my own space, partnered up with UFit called CrossFit Tangjeong, which is just a phenomenal space. Still have loads of friends and clients from there. In 4 years, we built like this absolute, just amazing community. And then also quite a big group of athletes, should we say. It was kind of known like the space where if you wanted to do well in CrossFit, you came there and you wanted to compete. So we took a team to regionals a couple of times, did a lot of, trips around Southeast Asia and China and Australia. And yeah, so that was a good 8 years of competing. Cost me a shoulder reconstruction and a lower back blowing out. And but if you don't try, you don't know, right? So
100%.
yeah, that was kind of like the last time I really kind of was competing hard, and then of late done some endurance stuff, some 60-kilometer runs across Singapore with a weighted vest on, as you know.
How's
Um, yeah, like COVID had a way of really keeping us honest, man, all really bored, and then wants to
yeah.
see what we're up to.
How weird can
So
we go?
exactly, like I think people don't realize like 60 kilometers is for me at the moment mentally it's not that bad, but then you
Mm.
layer a vest on that as well, and then you layer on the heat of Singapore. If anyone's listening, I know your crowd probably from the UK and international, but Singapore with a vest on at like 60 to 90% humidity, 30 degrees at night, like it's actually probably quite stupid to do,
Oh,
but
yeah.
you just get it done.
I've still got the scars from where
Yeah,
war on my back, mate.
100%, right. And that wasn't even a Mark Israel operation that you went for, that you got the scars in your back for. That's just from the way the vest. I see he went for a massive operation. He's got all these like drainage scars in the back of his. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. So and then going to one of the High Rocks. I think the High Rocks was just to be honest, it's a lovely blend of quite accessible, fitness for people, low skill. You do need a reasonable amount of strength, and it's a great running race with some obstacles sprinkled in between.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's why it has just taken off like ridiculous, right?
Mad amount of
And
money.
yeah, so that's been kind of like the spiel, man, for the last almost 30 years, man, since I first
Huge.
stepped into the gym.
Nah,
Yeah.
mate. Epic. Those that have trained with Dylan will know that he's got a different type of red line. Just from, I think, especially the coolest piece of the puzzle that we share, and I think other people that listen
Mm,
to this, I think that's the point, is that actually that weird tendency to try and fly so close to the sun just to see how hot it is the same with
mm,
relation to fitness challenge. The minute that you don't have challenge, you're bored. The minute that you are, again, we can talk it from a vocational perspective in a bit about suddenly going from running a lucrative PT business where life's good, chilled, full PT
mm,
client roster, etc. Do you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the hammer and I'm going to build a world-class gym that not only
Yeah.
delivers a bigger picture and a mission, but also challenges you as a business owner. Curious to explore a point on your athleticism, because I think, like you said, from a those that want to look up Dylan, he didn't just sort of fuck about in CrossFit. He was an elite level CrossFitter. Apart from taking me for the Singapore strongest PT with you and Megan, where you taught me a bit of a lesson where I didn't know what the fuck was going on. Um, we won it, just to be clear. I think the what would be what's one again? I think if we put it to some of the people, because again, me and you work with very similar demographics, high level CEOs, executive business owners, leaders in the CBD. That's where I learned and sort of cut my teeth to recognizing that what actual peak in high performance is in our realms. What would you say
Yeah.
is the biggest lesson from you as an athlete and as a business owner, if you want, from between your 20s and 30s to your 30s to now you about to touch the beautiful age of 40? Just to be clear, this geezer still looks 30. I've looked 40 since I was 32. So this is there's all sorts of judgment going on there. But
There's a
what was your biggest
hard
lesson?
paper round or what?
Uphill into the wind with hail coming at me from all angles, boss. Terrible.
Yeah, I think like just kind of touching on the biggest thing that I've kind of you know come about doing all these events and just really pushing myself is just self-awareness, to be honest. Like I know
Nice.
when I'm fit, right? Like I can feel it. Like there's just everything that comes together quite nicely, and that's like you know a, an effect of compounding effect of like just hours and hours training. When I was in my 20s and 30s, I had the luxury of time. Now I've got two kids. I'm a business owner with my two partners. I probably coach still about 150 hours a month. Obviously a wife and there's a lot moving parts, right? There's a lot going on. But I think between 20s and 30s, I had the time. Like that was the big thing. I used to train, I was competing in CrossFit like 3-4 hours a day. It was like normal, man. Now I
I
do,
remember coming to
I,
Angel Bagar in the morning, going for it, and then in
there's
the
always
evening as
training.
well. But
This boy's just
thank
training all day. And I think like it was more of a feel of like not, I must admit, there was like a lot of junk sets and reps in there. But when you're competing in CrossFit, which is like, the sports of the unknown, you need to be decently good at everything.
mm,
You don't need to be great at anything. You just need to be good at everything.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so like you're constantly trying to think of like, I was lucky enough I had coaches, literally my whole life I've had a coach to guide me along the process. That's also kind of changed, as people have like moved on with their careers and different guidance along the way. So time was a big thing. 20 to 30s had the time, still ran a business. But I just made a plan didn't have kids, obviously. So that was quite a game changer. So didn't have to rush home to do the pickups or the bedtimes or whatever it might be. And I would say probably 30s to 40s now. I competed up until I was about 34, 35, I think, for CrossFit. So I would say the last 5 years, there's been no CrossFit itself, but I have done high rocks and I have done things where I've done okay at the races. Um, and I've just kind of chosen things where, hypothetically, like recently I did a 10K running race where I just ran literally for 8 weeks. I didn't really do much gym work because I've done enough gym work in my life already.
yeah.
That
You
was
got a
my
lot of
rationale
pedigree, man.
behind it. So I think they would ask me like, how come you're not in the gym anymore? I was like, well, I've done 20 years of gym already. Like, I kind of know my body pretty well by now.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so big on time. Now I do probably like today I did like half an hour in the morning. I did some work, and I'll maybe do half an hour strength a little bit later. And like maybe I'll do that like 4 times a week, 2 half-an-hour sessions because I haven't got the luxury of having an hour and a half. And
Yeah,
I feel
yeah.
that that's kind of working pretty well because I feel like it pushes me because I make the most of my time because I only have half an hour and I'm not sitting on my phone dicking around, chatting to people. Like this is within, and what has brought back to me is training with more intention.
Nice.
Just because I'm now I'm time poor, right? Yeah, so that's been I would say the last 5 years. It's like short, sharp sessions, just get it done. Now, I know I don't need to do all the extra work because it's just really, there's no benefit into it.
Yeah.
I think what I do see a lot of now, still people between 8 and 30, 40, they're doing like 2 long sessions a day. They're doing 7 days a week. I'm like, so our massive kind of come to the point of what we do at Elevate is like educational around that, because I
Yeah.
think that's so important. It's like, more isn't better. A lot of
No.
times more is just more, right? Over and above, like they got super stressful jobs. I'm like, what are you doing, man? You're killing yourself. Like, don't you want to be here in 10 years' time or what?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so there's a lot of that going on, especially, I think with how sexy running's become over the last couple of years. People don't realize like a chill 10K, when you only normally do maximum 10K. It's not like your active recovery, man. This is like
Let,
you're still putting your body under huge load, right?
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so and over and from 40 and above and beyond, I still, I've got that kind of itch. I like to scratch competing. I think that's
Mm.
just in my blood. I'm not going to get rid of that.
Oh,
So
okay.
maybe choosing something a bit more endurance based. There's a really, really cool like off-road race in Cape Town next year that you're going to do with me.
Done for me,
So
coach. Yes.
late end of the next year, it's going to be Table Mountain. It's an amazing race. The
What, run or
UT
bike?
UT CT, the
Okay, yeah.
trail race up mountain, up Cape Mountain,
Oh, lekker. Yeah, yeah.
um,
How far?
up
What's
Table
the
Mountain. I
distance?
mean, I think it's 100 miles.
Oh, yeah. Don't worry. It's good because now this is on the tube, mate. This is on the podcast. Rach can't say no, bro. It has to. Hey, I had the
So
green light to
there's a
run
couple of
yesterday, mate.
options. Yeah, there's a couple of
Epic.
options, but I think it'll be a really good reason to go home for a while and bring you
Yeah,
along.
yeah. Mega, mega.
Uh,
I think for
mm,
your just to foot on the ball a second, just so you, as I
mm,
said, I think some of the listeners will be in the position where they're now listening to you,
yeah,
recognizing that actually your pedigree's got you in the door, but the bit that separates you from being able to perform at the age that you're at is that actually the self-awareness piece, and something that I've been exploring over the last 18 months in relation to the mental performance side interlinking with the physical is the reasoning behind what you're sorry the reason behind what you're doing. Is it actually additive, or is it taking away? And like you mentioned before, a lot of your customers, we'll go because we'll go into business in a second. A lot of your
mm,
customers who are high stress situations from a job perspective used to be athletic at university, but now they're heading towards their 40s. Their association with a recovery run is actually they're still running in zone 4 on a weekend.
yeah,
And the
yeah,
reason why they're broken, got no energy, they feel like shit, they've got no libido, they're still out of shape, they can't lose body fat, they've got all these poor quality sleep, their stresses all over the shop, they're overwhelmed, all these negative feedback loops
yeah,
are all associated with like exactly what you mentioned about having junk volume, not doing pointless shit and recognizing earning the right to progress. Someone like yourself who's got huge amounts of exposure to training variables over a
mm,
very long period of time. Now it's a case around just it's like you've got a Rolls Royce in a garage. You just polish that
yeah,
shit and you turn the engine on, and it's already ready to perform. And then if you want to rev it, you can go on for a challenge. You can drop the hammer. Compared to what most people do, is they're driving a Ford Ka. They're redlining the thing the whole time, not changing gears and never actually servicing the engine. So, super interesting to hear your point. Like again, because I think this massively we're heading in towards talking more about your gym and you as a business owner. I think
yeah,
the philosophy around Elevate is something that obviously when I was in Singapore, I said that when we were sat there at Messi Marcella in UFIT, and we used to talk around you owning a gym and working alongside again for the listeners that Naz and Stu also worked at Tanjong Pagar with Dylan, so they've been a crew for a very long period of time, and the sort of the evolution of all three of you as athletes and business owners. And Stu put a wicked post on the other day on Instagram about his philosophy. Right, he's an Olympic weightlifter. If anyone watches him, the dude's got a great ass and he can squat fucking hell. He can lift some tin. But
mm,
now the reasoning behind his training's changing, and I think that's something that I've been really, really poignant on is trying to give business owners still purpose within their training because you know exactly that. If you've got nothing, you're bored. But vice
yeah,
versa, exactly like you said, heading out to South Africa and doing something that is huge. It gives you you're still exploring your capacity, but actually you're giving yourself enough time to learn the skill to be able to do the thing compared to what most people are doing right now, which is like you said, how many people are just doing fucking high rock sims every day of the
yeah,
week, trying to get better at high rocks where we both everyone if you've been following along, This is just strength and conditioning. You don't need to give yourself a pronoun of hybrid or high rocks athlete to be a high rocks athlete. If you're elite level at what you do, you're
Mm.
actually breaking it down to the bare bones. So from again, those who are into Singapore, check out Elevate. It's in the CBD. But just tell us a little bit of a story around how the evolution of this business, sort of the philosophy and the mantra within it, and anything that
Mm.
again, if you think about from people who will be listening, who are traveling across to Singapore, and who want to jump in and get some exposure to some hard training. Talk to you about the gym.
Yeah, I think the gym came about. Obviously, as you said, we Stu, as myself, have worked together for probably about 7 years already. They coached for me at CrossFit Tanjong Pagar, and then they kind of went. We were in separate ways, and they went and trained or worked at a gym called CrossFit Mobilis. And then they approached me and they said, "Hey, we want to we want to open up a gym." I was still working at UFit. It says an employee, and yeah, the whole kind of idea around it was like, we've done tons of personal training. We've also run quite a successful CrossFit gym with a big community. Like, how do we really marry those together? What is this whole thing called? Like small group personal training. So very, very kind of foreign idea in Singapore, or at least 2.5 years ago, it was no one even knew what it
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
And we have thought of like, okay, our objective was to disrupt the fitness industry a little bit in Singapore and Southeast Asia. Let's see how things go. And I think it took us quite a while to kind of, really let that idea of small group personal training soak in and us to start believing in it and that it can actually work because we were so familiar with either big group classes or one-to-one personal training. And to be honest, like right now, 2 years later, it took us about 2 years to identify actually what we do, to be honest. So those people that are starting a new business, et cetera, it takes time to understand like who you service, who you're trying to attract, what do you actually do, right? Yes, we train people, but it's way more than that. So that's kind of like where we started figuring out who are we supposed to be attracting, who are we going to market to, who do we want in our gym, essentially. We have got to the luxury of like, not to sound boastful, but we kind of choose the people who we want in our gym, and we feel if they're going to be a good match for our space, our community, and for the small group PT as well, then that's kind of like that's where we are at the moment. We're probably attracting people that are on the age between, I'd say, 35 to 55. It's getting old, obviously older as the years go by because the older crew are bringing their friends in, and it's been a massive referral base. And people just kind of want to like, let's say, if you've done a lot of personal training before and you want to just take a break from that, if either it's kind of too expensive or you haven't got the time or you can't commit, we do roughly 10 sessions a day. So that kind of solves the time thing straight away. The pricing point is very, very competitive in the CBD for what we do, even for big classes. Our classes are like 6-to-1 ratio.
Nice.
And every person that joins the gym is, or every member at least, is attached to one of our coaches. And they can be used for any lifestyle guidelines, any nutrition guidelines as well. So someone can hold your hand along the process, but the training environment still lends itself to quite competitive in that 6-to-1 ratio. Then Wednesdays, so our small group personal training model runs on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And then Wednesdays, we do work capacity. Obviously, we feel it's vitally important to work on that. So we do a bit of aerobic work. And at the moment, we're doing a lot of anaerobic work. So we're just getting people a lot more stronger and a bit more explosive. And then on Saturday mornings, no better way to actually send it with a Send It Saturday, where we do big group classes up to kind of 20 people in a class. And everyone's just working together on a single mission to get a certain amount of calories done, meters, whatever it might be. So that combination has like worked really well, I think. Our big takeaway was like not to compromise on anything. I think so many gyms, not to make any judgment, but like just they're so reactive to certain things where they don't know who they're talking to. They lack clarity, and then they start compromising their standards just for a buck. To whether it's to pay rental or I think people often see through that. It's like, so that's pretty much like what we do at the moment, man. And I still have personal training clients, from long-standing personal trainers clients, but our core product of Elevate is a small group personal training model.
Yeah, yeah,
So big
nice.
shout out to Gym Owners Network and Genzo and Ollie, man.
Yeah, yeah. Nah, it's
They they sold us the idea.
yeah, yeah, and mate, Jack Robson.
Yeah,
We did our built pressure immersion day at his gaff, and he actually works alongside me. He does some training with me. Legend, but like-minded people, and Ollie and Jens and
mm,
them guys have absolutely revolutionized the delivery system of that. Matt Connolly as well. He actually used to mentor me when I was in Singapore. So we're
mm,
all connected somewhere, man. But there's so many
mm,
cool things to sort of pick apart in that respect. Because as you as a business owner, I think the cool thing you're mentioning around starting something and finding your feet, breaking it again, doing it again, making it better, all driven through your philosophy. I mean, I'm probably putting words in your mouth, but it's because I'm wired the same as you in relation to the way you train people. Is the corporate is you're training people to be athletic, and by
yeah,
default, the health and performance metrics get better by training with focus. And you mentioned before around training with intention. I think a lot of the reason why other businesses struggle in the fitness industry is because, like you said, they're jumping on trends and forgetting actually what's built the standard of what they do. I mean, again, shout out the guys at 98 Gym in Australia. That's what I sort of learned this from first hand personally was it was just a team sport. And this is what we do. And like you said, being in a new dynamic to Singapore was obviously going to be turbulent for you as a business owner because you have to match market demand, market understanding, and also how do you get your the best thing about you three, and the worst thing is you've got so many years of experience. If someone comes to you with this with like a generic problem, it's like, right, I've got 3 million tools to help you with. It's
yeah,
picking the quickest way of getting somebody there. And again, those are the people that we haven't really Naz is massive on nutrition. And then you've got
yeah,
new guys in the gym that I weren't there when I were there who are now specialists in certain areas. The overriding theme of what you're describing there is Elevate's ethos is
yeah,
developing fitter, faster, stronger, leaner corporate athletes who have the ability to rise to challenge or whatever the sort of slashes. From from that side of things, I think from it gives some people some a bit more meat on the bone.
mm.
From as the people, the individuals that you deal with on a one-on-one basis and from a PT based basis, what do you see are the sort of the top three common issues with their training health and performance that you see that are causing those to have like bottlenecks with their performance or they're unable to sort of achieve what they're trying to achieve? What do you guys see in the gym most often with those corporate athletes? Just that we'll give them a little bit of the sort of fitness side of things too, because I think that'd be important.
Yeah. I think like a lot of them are just in general quite addicted to like high intensity exercise. Um, you're coming off this massive kind of high stress load, probably like lacking of sleep, and then a lot of people either out in the drinks, a couple of nights a week, and then they
Standard.
want to like punish themselves, by doing like really hard lick outs, should we say, for the back of so loads of sweating. I think, and the biggest kind of fallacy is that you're not working hard if you're not sweating. I think
Yeah,
people
yeah.
marry that up. It's incredible how people marry that up. So what we've done is we identified people need to get a lot stronger. So what's actually happened is a lot of people have now started coming to Elevate to get stronger because we do a lot of bodybuilding, we do a lot of time and attention. We've got a structured 8 to 10 week program where we test, retest at the end in most of the blocks. We've got, Stuart leads all the programming, the SGPT, who he's a whiz. He should be building rockets, not
Yeah,
coaching
he's
people.
he's got Rain Man programming vibes, doesn't he?
Yeah. So, with this great programming, and then obviously what we deem as very close to world class coaching, we hold our standards high. With all the strength work we're doing is what it allows people to do, come into the gym day in, day out, keeping them at like that 80% way all the way through. And then maybe taxing them pretty hard, maybe on a Wednesday, once, maybe twice a week, really hard.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
most people don't need to be smashed every day of the week, right? That
Nah.
becomes like a mental or an emotional issue compared to like, and there's no education behind that kind of mentality. So that's what's happened now. It's like, we slow things down. What we do find, because it's such a small group class, if someone's coming in and they haven't slept for the past week because they're 2 year old, there's like keep them up and shit in the bed and like in whatever it might be, then we just pump the brakes a little on them. And that's the nice thing. We have ability to either change movements or change the intensity on a person. So we do a little check-in before they come into the class. Hey, what's happening? What's going on? Where can we meet you? Where can we meet you to today? Not just in a general sense.
Yeah.
So I think that's quite a unique kind of concept. And then generally, like I feel when people leave the gym, in most cases, like then the coach just forgets about the person. Like that's it, done. Where we do monthly check-ins with our clients. We do a lot of them. We give them as much attention as they need. They have access to us all the time, to their coach that they've been given through the session. So there's that, and then I think quite a lot of educational posts via we use WhatsApp, so it's got like a closed community kind of tool that the members have access to. So a lot of nutrition work on there, a lot of great recipes that NAS just pushes through a lot of information on that. So I think that those are big three kind of takeaways. So educational work over and above, and plus the ability to basically manage the stress of the client when they come in, and then also just a lot of bodybuilding to make them stronger. I think those are our big three, man.
Massive, man. I think there are
Yeah,
three pieces of the puzzle that in this day and age aren't sexy, but they
no,
are the. That's the thing. Again, we can go down some massive rabbit holes of people that are escaping and trying
mm,
to. They say they're training hard, but they're flapping around like a knob, not putting 200 watts on a bike for 3 minutes, and you're there, mate. You're not training hard, you're just shouting your head off. I think
yeah,
the escapism of exercise is normal, and most people haven't had that. Again, it stems back to the self-awareness piece, and I think those that are now putting the dots together. Obviously, I lived in Singapore for 5 years, worked alongside Dylan in that time, and bumped heads with him, educated with him, did some crazy shit with him. But you can now tell that the same ethos applies. That there isn't a one size fits all. There is a
yeah,
horses for courses. There's a method to the madness, and there's a reasoning behind it. But actually, the things that are going to get you there are being active in education, being adaptable, and recognizing your recovery ethic is probably more important than anything else, because if you can't recover, you can't perform better. And actually getting back to something, most people they associate bodybuilding with Ronnie Coleman, and however much we want to, yeah, buddy, yeah, we want to be there, um then that's definitely part of the game that I'll get stuck. So if well, again, shameless plug, but not in a bad way, but more from, there'll be a lot of people that are now curious in relation to your gym. What
yeah.
if they were sat at their desk and they were struggling with, what would you say would be the first thing for them to do to engage with you guys? Because again, it's like when you come into sort of gyms where you walk in there and it's like a fucking cauldron of work rate. And people are like, "What
Yeah.
the hell? How is it they will engage with you?" And like you said, you could again, definitely a shameless plug, because I send my clients that are flying across to you, because I know exactly how they're going to get looked after. How does someone get in
Yeah.
the game with you?
Cool, man. So obviously, just through social media, check out elevate.sg.com. You can just send us a message. We'll get back to you straight away. Alternatively, just through our website. So it's elvte sg.com. Or alternatively, you can just message me. That's perfectly fine. It's dill.goddard on the old IG. But alternatively, you can just come to the gym and check it out. It's number 101 Cecil Street in the CBD, right next to the Starbucks on Cross Street. So yeah, I think it's easy to kind of come in, meet me. We do a consult with everyone that comes in. So usually our process is we do a consult, get to kind of just to know the person, and see if they'll be a good fit for the gym and for the timings as well, and the scheduling. And then I follow that. We would do it pretty much about a whole hour. We do a movement assessment, a goal assessment with every one of our clients, and then just go through the entire lifestyle and nutrition audit. Um, and that's kind of like also a great way to just keep a bit of accountability between the coach and the client. So it's really kind of like personal training. I mean, that's kind of what I would do with my
Yeah,
PT
yeah.
clients anyway, right? So
Nice.
that's where the value is. And then after that, the clients would start, they'll book into a class, and then they would start training, and then there'd be a touch point probably once a week for the first month at least, and then the touch points just kind of stagger a little bit longer and longer, bi-weekly, and then once a month, etc. And then so that's kind of the touch points that you could receive. And then obviously within our community, we have events, and we have the Sunday send it sessions where people get together and
Go
hang
dark.
out and just, yeah, I mean, it's tough, but
Yeah, yeah.
that's what we want, right? We want hard things because Singapore is too easy, man. That's
Singapore is
why I always
so easy, brother. It's such a different. You have to, you want to callous your mind. You have to do hard shit, and I think it's really it's probably one of the best things about uh you guys is it's not. It's easy to make someone sweat loads and make them feel beaten up. Just put you could just put Andy Reid says you could just put them in a sauna and beat them with a stick, and that gives them the same feeling. Whereas actually, you're pushing people to find new limits through
yeah,
exposures that are actually principled and scientifically driven. That's going to give people both the emotional bit of, like you said, we love a bit of redlining sometimes, but just not all the time. And I think that's
yeah,
probably the biggest poignant piece of this is that in the environment where in Singapore more is always more money, more impact, more everything.
yeah,
Actually, in regards to physical well-being and performance, it's actually less is usually more. And I think
yeah,
that that's massive from not only being one of you being so close to me, but someone who I massively appreciate in my corner
yeah,
from an education standpoint is there's a few years under the belt that has seen all these trends go past, but actually the simple
yeah.
things are the thing that's going to push the needle first.
Yeah, I think it's like often, as we say, you got to slow down to speed up sometimes, right?
Yeah,
Um, and especially in a place like Singapore where people are just looking for these like escapes all the time, right? Because everyone hates their job. It's like, no one wants to go home to their families,
yeah,
so
yeah,
they just kind of like look for a place to escape a little bit, right?
100%.
Yeah, and I think that all three of us and the coaching team as well like sing the same song, right? We're all personal trainers first and foremost, and then we coach in classes, right? So that's what we look for when we potentially looking for a new coach, or someone, we need someone that has the mind of a personal trainer, but also the character that can coach a small class. So yeah, I think that's been a like godsend that our team is really strong. We've got Tyler, who represents Springboks sevens and 15s rugby. We've got Ash, who's a ex-pro UFC fighter. So, and then you've got the old Nugget, the local Nugget, Justin, who's an absolute freak. He's going to be such a good athlete. And then obviously Stu, Naz, and myself. So pedigree is
Is
high,
there?
shall we
Yeah,
say?
yeah. Now,
Yeah,
your
yeah,
your environment dictates the pace of your performance, isn't it? And I think having
yeah,
people that have been there, done that, and got the t-shirt, and the expectation that most people that come in through your door aren't going to be elite level UFC fighters, but we both know that he's been to a dark place before. He can then bring that out in PT, mate. So now I think Elevate's definitely on a trajectory that is going to dominate across the CBD and beyond. So now, mate, first, I massively appreciate you not only as a friend,
cheers.
but a bit of a shining light in the CBD because we've got some other friends like Sam Brennan and the guys over there, and there are a few other
Mm,
pockets that are doing wicked things. But I think from a me and you standpoint, seeing you have an in-person space where I'm trying to do this online, it's wicked to have like-minded people. So no, I appreciate you, man. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
an absolute pleasure, man. It's been great to have a bit of a yarn and
Loves it.
to share my story. Hopefully with your kind of followers and guests that
Yeah,
listen to
yeah.
your podcasts. And yeah, it's been really good, man. Good to
Legend.
chat.
As mentioned, guys,
Cheers.
in the show notes, I'll have all the links to Jim, Dylan, the rest of the crew. Thank you very much, brother. I appreciate you.
An absolute pleasure. Have a great week ahead, my man.
Cheers, Chum. Thank you.